So what is a migraine? A migraine is a really interesting neurological condition that is centered around the Trigeminovascular system. That's a fancy term for basically your trigeminal nerve is what innervates your face in the ophthalmic branch, the maxillary branch, and the mandibular branch. It also innervates your chewing muscles and your eye, sensory information, not your vision. But it is a major cranial nerve that then travels into your brainstem and then synapses with some different nerves there, including nerves from your neck. And this nerve, through a variety of different systems, is able to be sensitized, and it can then suddenly spontaneously discharge, causing the blood vessels in your brain to dilate. And that's what leads to this throbbing headache, and that spontaneous activity in the brainstem as well and the trigeminal nerve can also cause what's called cortical spreading depression, or this wave of neurological activity that travels through the brain and is responsible in large part for the aura that a lot of people get, which is the visual disturbance or sound disturbance or nausea or even numbness in your body. There's a lot of different symptoms you can have, but the migraine is driven by the trigeminal system. And the trigeminal nerve releases a compound called CGRP, as well as other pro-inflammatory compounds. And this system is basically able to adapt over time. So as this system is sensitized by some layer of your body, maybe it's your neck that's sending some signals to your brainstem, that in the cervicotrigeminal nucleus, which is a little nucleus in the brainstem that takes this information and sends it up to the brain to be delivered to the higher levels of processing in the brain. And when this area has information coming from both the face and the neck, those signals can get crossed a little bit. And so sometimes when you have pain in the neck, you can actually feel it in the head instead, which is kind of confusing, but is why sometimes you feel that pain here and then suddenly it's up here. Or maybe you take a finger and you press in that area and you're like, oh yeah, I feel it right above my eye. Or some people feel it in different parts of their face or even in their teeth sometimes. But the interesting thing about this is that over time, your body is actually able to learn pain or become sensitized centrally. And so our brains are very plastic, which is a good thing, meaning that you are able to learn new skills and adapt over time to challenges that you're facing in your day-to-day lives. But the system can also be co-opted by pain systems, and you can have an increase in this signal, leading to people developing what's called chronic migraines. That's when migraines are starting to become much more frequent, and they happen on a very regular basis over time. And so what we need to do is down-regulate that system over time through things that help to improve the burden and basically break the cycle, where a migraine is occurring, causing pain, and that then strengthens that cycle. We need to unravel that. So things that help to reduce the sensitivity are things like getting appropriate sleep, getting really good hydration consistently, having regular physical activity that meets the ACSM guidelines. So about 150 minutes per week of cardiovascular training and 2 days a week of resistance training. And then there's other things, strengthening your neck, doing things that help to promote stress management. So mindfulness training, it can be meditation or other practices that work for you. But the important thing is that we're decreasing the sensitivity. And I actually like to describe the Trigeminovascular system as basically like a bucket. And this bucket, when it's really big, you can pour a bunch of water in it, which the water would be like your triggers. So let's say you have a sensitivity to something like wine. If you pour your wine into your bucket and you've got a really big bucket, that doesn't get you that full in the bucket. But let's say you start adding other triggers. Maybe you didn't sleep very well, and so that's a big trigger for you. That fills your bucket more. And now you're super stressed at work. You're really having, a lot to get done, and that overflows your bucket. And that overflowing would be when you kind of get pushed into a migraine. So the bucket system helps to describe this because there are ways that our buckets can kind of get smaller over time. So things that are sensitizing your trigeminal vascular system, those are making the bucket smaller, meaning those triggers that you have, when they get poured into your bucket, that is easily overflowing. So you're constantly in this cycle of getting a migraine. But there are a few ways that we can help to prevent water from getting into your bucket. And there are a few ways that we can help to slowly make your bucket bigger, like the exercise I was discussing. And we have a lot of studies to support the ability for us to change your sensitivity over time. Sometimes if you're in a high severity chronic migraine state, it helps to have a medicational support system in place while you do the things that are helping you to make lasting change. But if you're not getting migraines all that often, there's a good chance that taking some of these holistic approaches towards improving the burden of your migraines to increase your bucket size and also ideally prevent some of that water from going into your bucket by managing your triggers well, that can be a very effective way to reduce the burden, decrease the frequency and intensity of your migraines, and lead to a more full and rich life. So there's a lot that can be done, and sometimes it just takes getting familiarity with those systems, things that actually influence your migraines, and then having some strategies in place to manage your triggers and start to make these changes long lasting, because ultimately this is about creating a lifestyle that supports your improvement, supports a healthy maintenance program.